And I think when I first started out in product, there were so many different things that you can read and absorb out there that it can almost be paralyzing at times in terms of what is the right thing to select for a particular scenario. And so as my experience expanded in the 3 years that I've been in product management, I've instead kind of curated various different things that I find helpful as thinking and discussion aids, more to actually interrupt myself and kind of create a little bit of space when a challenge arises and sort of figure out how best to approach that. So this is largely kind of what my talk is about today. So last time when I did a product management talk, I shared about like how I found my way into product management. And this time it's kind of more about what I reach for in practice when the going gets a little bit tough. But just to give you a little bit of background about me, I'm Caroline and I work for HC1. We are a care home provider. And we build some products internally, mobile apps and things like that, that we use within our estate and within our group of homes. But largely we manage third-party products, and it's all about getting that business value out of the product, ensuring that our users are happy, and that we are achieving business goals within the products that we're using, and obviously the cost and things like that as well, and kind of considering that and what improvements we can provide. So I started my career and I did a year in recruitment, which was quite formative in terms of convincing people to take jobs. I did a lot of temporary recruitment at the time. So I used to go to a donut factory and try and convince people that they wanted a minimum wage job, flipping donuts. And then I moved into healthcare and I did a lot of finance-based roles, largely in accounts receivable. So that was a really good grounding for me now in my product years in terms of understanding commercially what makes our business tick. So understanding how we collect payments for the residents and understanding the care sector and things like that. It's given me a really good grounding now that allows me to apply that to product. And I think it is really important as a product manager, and something that will set you out above others is if you are able to have commercial awareness and really understand what is important to your business and what adds revenue, etc., to the bottom line, so that you can keep that in mind and sort of prioritize those goals first and foremost. And then my product management experience, I was picked up by our digital team and kind of said you would be a good fit for this role. And in all honesty, at the time, I didn't really know what product management was. But it's turned out to be a great fit for me, and it's something I'm very passionate about and really enjoy. And I think initially I felt very much like it wasn't going to work for me because I didn't have a technical background. And I kind of assumed that to be an effective product manager, you would need to be really technical. And for anyone who has any kind of concerns or experience with that, I think actually in reality, as long as you are technically literate and you're not going to promise to kind of your stakeholders or to your users something that is just not technically plausible, then you're okay. It's about understanding kind of who does have that technical knowledge and building it up over time as well, with your sort of personal development and focusing on specific areas that help you and collect the knowledge over time. I also think there are a lot of transferable skills to product management in terms of things like stakeholder management, your communication skills, and like I said, business and kind of commercial sense as well are kind of really good key things to have in there. So I've supported a lot of different products, primarily in the sort of commercial and finance space at HC1, including things like website and lead generation stuff. And then over the last year, I was given my own project to run. And so that's given me like real hands-on experience of a pilot and understanding exactly how we get a return on investment, short term, value versus long-term value and things like that. So it's kind of through that I've had the opportunity to really apply the things that I've learned and kind of built this toolkit, if you like. So this is by no means kind of hard and fast rules. Hopefully these things just kind of help you or kind of prompt a little bit of discussion or maybe get you to think in a slightly different way. Um, so building a good toolkit. So like I said before, there's so many resources available in product, whether you look at product-based books, whether you attend talks like this one or in-person talks, LinkedIn, if you're somebody who uses LinkedIn, there are so many people who post and will say and share so many different opinions and frameworks and things like that, that at times it can almost be overwhelming. And so I think what really helps is that if you build a toolkit, anything that you add to that, it should be lightweight and kind of usable under pressure. So if you have a circumstance, something comes a little bit left field, maybe you've just started at a new company, or you've just been given a new product, or you are working with a new cross-functional team and you don't know anyone who's in that area. What things can you go for that are just going to make it easy for you in the moment to kind of help you respond? And obviously you need your tools to be context aware. So the fit is appropriate to the scenario that you are going to apply it to. And the one that I think is probably actually almost the most important is that it's discardable. So if something you've added to your toolkit no longer serves you for whatever reason, cut it out. Don't keep going with the same thing. And I know a couple of people mentioned about personal development, and so I think reflection is a really good and important thing to do. And it can be difficult because as a product person, when you are constantly aligned to delivering value and progress and things like that, you're always looking to the next thing, and it can be a challenge at times to build in a pause for yourself to reflect. So you can see on these slides, I have included some little quotes just to kind of support the message, and also some memes, hopefully just to provide a little bit of entertainment. So this is, like I say, a lot less about kind of frameworks for particular life cycles and just much more about, in a particular situation, what might help you. So if you're in a scenario where everything feels unclear, such as you've just joined a new team or you've just been dropped into a new product, the first thing you can do is to prioritize your unknowns. And I suppose at that point, you're going to feel like you know this much, and here's all the things you don't know, kind of thing. And that can be really overwhelming and kind of paralyzing in the moment. And certainly, if you are somebody who really cares about wanting to do good work, make good first impressions, and take pride in your work, it can be overwhelming initially. So if you consider all the things you don't yet know and jot those down, and then the next thing would be to establish your subject matter experts. So hopefully within your organization, whether it's your user base, or other people in your product team, your developers, whoever it might be, your product owners, etc., establish who those people are and have some good conversations with them. What can you learn from them? How can you lean on them in this time to build your knowledge? I think there's a bit, or that we can tend to assume that we need to know everything right out the gate, and that's absolutely not the case. It's using the resources that are available to you. And then once you've kind of got a little bit of a clarity around the things that you don't know, you want to identify kind of what the most important things on there are. So what's that one question that, if answered it, provides the most clarity to the current situation? So, quite often product managers are brought in at a problem point. And so you need to find something to resolve that quickly. So that one question, you speak to your SMEs, you've filled in the gaps and spoken to a lot of people, and then hopefully that will give you some clarity in terms of how you're going to go forward. And there's a quote on there from Stephen Covey, and there is a couple of quotes from him throughout these slides around seek first to understand and then to be understood. And I think that's the most important thing is if you understand the problem, then you can explain to everybody else, give that confidence back to your stakeholders, and you'll get the buy-in then that you need if you are in a new company, a new team, or working on a new product, etc. So if everything feels urgent, obviously this can be a big one again. Certainly if you're going into a new team or maybe there's something kind of circumstantial happening within the business, and you get a new priority. The best thing again here, and this is a common theme, is to pause. Because you can get brought along with any kind of stress or pressure that is coming from your stakeholders, from your leader, whoever it is, you can pick up on that. And you might kind of set off on a track that actually, if you stepped back, you would then be able to evaluate better and get sort of a better result towards the end. So if you pause and kind of prioritize based on impact, which I think is the most key thing for a product manager in terms of when you are talking about what's important, is why is it important, and you need to be able to explain why it's important and to back that up. So if you've got some data, you've got some user feedback, it's in response to a current problem that is impacting performance, revenue, etc. of your product at the moment. And then again, a really important one is around kind of delegating or deferring as well, dependent on your evaluation. So again, in product management, typically you should have lots of people who are around you and who contribute to the value of what you're doing and to the maintenance of the product and things. So who else has the skills, who can help you out in that scenario? And again, that kind of goes a long way towards building confidence and trust and things like that within your team. And communicating, again, a really, really big thing in terms of getting that confidence. Communication is so important to bring people along on the journey. And this is another Stephen Covey quote, but most of us spend too much time on what is urgent and not enough time on what is important. And I think, again, that kind of comes down to you can kind of be on a bit of a treadmill sometimes of just getting things done. And if you don't pause, you might actually realize that you've taken your eye off the strategy and you're kind of heading down a different road that isn't really going to give you the value and the results that you would want in the long run. So, what about when people disagree? So obviously, typically we don't like conflict. And it can be challenging to be in a room, whether that's virtually or in person, where people disagree or have different opinions. So again, that kind of pausing and realizing that there actually is somewhere in this conversation going to be a silver lining and something you need to know as a product professional. So the best thing to do is to establish a shared understanding. So if you do happen to have someone that is creating a little bit of conflict or is bringing a challenge or disagrees, they have some sort of experience or some piece of knowledge or something that is influencing their viewpoint. So if you can come to understand that and invite other people to kind of contribute and share their thoughts, then you are establishing a shared understanding. And you might not be able to do it in that specific instance. You might have to go away and have additional conversations, and then you could almost kind of come back and present back what you've learned and sort of what those concerns were, or what somebody's opinion is on why that's not the right fit. I've had a couple of experiences where any opposition has actually turned into a guardrail for me within the product, within the pilot, of if this happens, then this is a problem and we need to watch out for this. So it's given me early indicators and things to look for. So it's been very beneficial to have people challenge you. And I think it's talked about quite commonly as well in the product space that if you have a cross-functional team, even if everybody agrees, almost ask somebody in the room to wear a hat of being an opposer or somebody who disagrees, so that you can have thought about your product problem or your priorities from multiple different angles. And obviously, when people do disagree as a product manager, you really need to bring everything back to your overall strategy. And that should help you kind of prioritize and again bring people in on that shared understanding of acknowledging, yes, I completely understand the concern there or the challenge there or why you would like us to focus on this particular thing. However, it doesn't fit into this particular strategy item kind of thing. And then the other thing is as well is kind of considering how you communicate. So everybody learns in different ways and absorbs information in different ways. So conversation can be great, but not everybody can take all of the key information in. So I personally lean quite a lot on visuals and trying to keep it simple, and also allowing people to give you feedback at a later date or separately, as you get to know your team. If you have somebody who doesn't speak up, that's just not them, have a separate conversation with them and kind of get some feedback from them as well. And I quite liked the quote for this one. So peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to cope with it. And I think that's the thing. If you can kind of change your perspective on conflict, as I said at the start, actually it can really help you out as a product professional to understand different perspectives and the challenges that you might be facing. At HC1, when I joined the product team, product management was quite a new principle, and so we were trying to change sort of the approach of the company as a whole, and get them to adopt and welcome product management. And so that kind of communication, bringing people along with the journey was so important. And initially, people felt like we were blocking progress because we were asking more questions up front and spending more time on discovery. So yeah, can be a challenge, but one well worth practicing. So when you need to show progress, so HC1 for me is very sort of stakeholder heavy. I work on multiple products with lots of different teams, and sort of trying to break down those silos and getting everybody pulling together with sort of like the company strategy. And I tend to find that when people come to you, it's because they've got to report into somebody else to sort of say how this is going. And so when you need to show progress, I think a great thing to do is design a stakeholder visual. So we all probably use some sort of product that we run our sprints in, or that we kind of, map all of our stories and kind of thoughts out in. And lots of those products have built-in dashboards. But certainly for HC1, the challenge is that nobody's really interested in going and looking at those dashboards, and they don't understand a lot of the information that is typically in there. They just want to know, are we on track? Is it going well? Is there a blocker, etc. And if you can kind of build something that is repeatable and is lightweight and easy for you to do, so it's not a burden, don't kind of overpromise or overcommit yourself to something really fancy that you then can't maintain when you're under pressure. Those senior stakeholders just know that they're going to get an update, and that view, that kind of confidence building, you're establishing it because you've proven to be reliable. So you could do something really, really simple, kind of almost like a progress bar or something like that. Say, have you got a blocker, a brief explanation of your blocker, just small bits of information about what you're currently working on, and allow them to come back to you with questions. And then again, that's building your stakeholder relationship as well. So if they're curious and they want to know more, they can ask you for more and you can build that out. And maybe you will iterate on your visual, and the next week you'll include a snippet of information. Or maybe you want that kind of, the ongoing conversation and feedback with your stakeholder. So lightweight, repeatable, and easy to understand. So at a glance, can you understand what the progress is from last week, for example? And then I think the quote for this one, it's an African proverb that I found, and it says, "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." And again, I think from a stakeholder point of view, whenever I've had kind of any disconnect with stakeholders, it's because I've been working away in the background, working really hard, achieving results, but they themselves weren't included in that conversation, so they didn't have that confidence. And you can find different ways to do it. I had a stakeholder who travels a lot, and so they're quite difficult to get time in the diary. Um, and so I got into a habit of recording a brief update. I think I used Microsoft Teams. You can have like a little notebook page. I put in some stats about the product, and then like my face was kind of in a circle down the bottom. And I just each week I kind of gave them a little bit of an update of where we were at, because it was a product that we'd brought in not under product management, but kind of being given. They were wanting to make quick progress, turn some new features on, but actually at the time we were having a bit of an issue around performance, number of tickets being logged and things like that. We just needed it to embed a little bit more and fix some of the challenges we were seeing at that time. So by me taking time to explain, this is where we're currently at, they were a lot calmer and a lot more comfortable, and then able to report into their kind of senior leaders. So it's just thinking out of the box. What's the easiest way that you can communicate with somebody and that they can access it. So, what about the scenario when we ourselves, as product people, are overwhelmed? Because I've definitely been in that position multiple times. If you've got a couple of projects overlapping, some things come up somewhere, and you're wanting to document things. There can just be so many things that you need to do, need to remember, etc., and it can be really overwhelming at times. So I like the idea of using Moscow to kind of prioritize your to-do list. And the first time this idea came to me was actually at Christmas, which maybe sounds a little bit odd, but there was so many things that like I felt like I needed to do, wanted to do, things that are nice to do. Um, you know, they could your list is just so long, isn't it, at Christmas? So kind of came up with it then. So we're probably in most cases aware of the framework and the idea behind it. So traditionally, it's kind of around prioritizing your user stories or the features and things like that you're going to do. Um, and the thing I like about Moscow versus some of the other um, matrix that you can use to evaluate your priorities is that it really makes you stop and think about why a particular to-do item sits in that area. So if it's a must, is it really a non-negotiable, or is somebody just shouting really loud that makes you feel like it's something that should be done? Um, and then anything that sits in should, why, like, should you do that, and why will it add value? Um, and I think this can be a really helpful tool for ensuring that you get job satisfaction as much as possible as well. And that you're thinking about some of the bigger ticket things that are not necessarily kind of business as usual, keeping the wheels in motion with what you're doing with your product. And could is anything that sits in could, I think needs really good evaluation, because could could provide a lot of satisfaction potentially, or joy, because it might be some research that you want to do, some deeper dive on some data that you may not technically need, but will add value. So at Christmas time, for example, when I was thinking about could, it was like baking cookies and decorating them was I could do this. And I would like to do it because it'll taste nice and I'll enjoy the creative experience. But I need to go and get the ingredients. I need to make the time to do it. I need to follow a recipe, blah, blah, blah. So it's sort of like weighing that up, really. And then won't is probably my favorite of these, because I think saying no as a product manager is something that we typically struggle with. We don't want to say no to people, but actually it's a very powerful thing to do. So anything that goes in want is really good. If you can scrap something, scrap it. If you don't need it, get rid of it. Don't spend your time there. Where else can you spend your time that adds so much more value? And then obviously the bonuses, once you've kind of gone through and done that, like who can help you? So, at Christmas time, had a good conversation with my husband. Right, okay, these are all the things. Like, what can you take from this list? What would you like to do? Etc. And add bits and pieces in there. And obviously from a team point of view as well, that can be good for morale and kind of supporting them and any development and things that they want to take. And another Stephen Covey quote here is, the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. So again, that just kind of ties back into like interrupting the flow, the direction that you're going in, and really asking the question of like, hold on, like, am I focusing on the right things right now? Or should I be doing something else? And reflection is just such a powerful tool in general for that. So that's why I personally really like Moscow for that. And then this is kind of a bit of a bonus one, because I think you've got to think positively in these ways. So when things are going well, we as professionals, whatever profession you're in, it's so important that you collect your wins. So make a list of the things that you've done that have gone really well. There can be insignificant things or there can be really big things. If you've made a product change and it's increased revenue, or you got some really great customer feedback, whatever it is, that obviously has a practical benefit for us as individuals in terms of career progression, promotion and things like that. But also, we absolutely should celebrate when things have gone well. Like, take a moment, because product can be really fast paced and you move very quickly on to the next thing. So taking a moment just to pause and go, actually, that went really well, or it went really well, but here's some things we can learn and do better for next time. And record, and that is really good. And sharing it. So, typically, and maybe this can be more of a challenge, particularly for women as well, talking about our successes and owning successes can be a challenge in some cases, but it shouldn't be. We absolutely should talk about what has gone well, what we've done, what the team has done, what a particular individual we've worked with has done, and really kind of add into the culture that we want to see in the places that we work by calling out successes, and definitely sharing learnings and things as well. And I liked the quote of this one as well. So success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. So the theme of this kind of has all been about like how you interrupt any kind of paralysis or panic with a pause, reflect, and kind of see what you can do from there, really. So I hope that this has been interesting and that you've enjoyed it. And I suppose just to kind of open out the discussion, unless anyone does have any specific questions for me, when a challenge arises for you, how do you create space to reflect and evaluate before you take action in your work? And thank you very much. And I would love to connect on LinkedIn as well if we're not already. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really interesting. I'm not sure how I reflect at the moment. I've got a toddler, so I keep thinking about it in that context, and I keep thinking like, how do you, when he's kicking off, having a tantrum, how do you sort of? I do agree that it's really useful to have that space, and I keep thinking like, how do you make him stop for a minute? I think a biscuit's probably the current solution.
Love that. Hey, like a coffee break or a biscuit break, I totally subscribe to that as a way to take a pause. Anything you can do to interrupt it. I think one of the best things you can do is kind of reframe it. I think it can be really easy sometimes when there is conflict and probably even with your toddler kind of thing to think that they're directing it at you. And they're not, and it's the same in the professional space. Usually kind of conflict is can often be either fear-based, usually down to like a lack of understanding. And it's in your case, you're obviously trying to give your toddler tools for how to cope in life when he doesn't get his way or whatever it might be. So yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of parallels.
Mhm.
Do you want to come in, Fern?
Yeah. I don't necessarily have an answer to the question. I suppose it's we generally go through like a retrospective format at the end of sprints or at the end of projects. So that's generally how we look to reflect and make improvements. I had a question, I suppose. So you had your slide on what to do when things go well. Outside of reflecting, is there tips and tricks in the toolkit for what to do when things go wrong?
Sure. Well, so I suppose when that's a good point. I don't know how I missed that really out of my kind of questions from the talk. I suppose I think the best thing you can do when something goes wrong is pause and evaluate and make sure you yourself understand first and foremost what has actually gone wrong. Because sometimes, you maybe get user feedback or a stakeholder will come to you and say, this has happened and blah, 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 blah. And you need to go and verify first, what the actual reality or impact of whatever it is that has potentially gone wrong. And then it's getting back to kind of evaluating what the priority is, what the most important thing you could resolve there is. And the theme for me would always be communication. Like it's okay to say you don't know in the moment, and that you don't know what the problem is, but give confidence in terms of saying, right, okay, I'm going to go and look at X, Y, and Z. I'm going to have conversations with this person and that person, and I will come back to you at a reasonable point in time. And make sure you stick to that. And I think ultimately, as long as you give confidence and stick to your word, then people will be okay. And again, there's kind of silver linings from that because things do go wrong. And if you can lead with confidence, even when you feel like everything's on fire, you will win a lot of respect from your peers, your teams and your stakeholders and things. So yeah, don't panic and investigate, because there's one occasion I can think where something had gone wrong, and I took it at face value based on what I was told, and then when I actually went back and looked, it's like, that isn't the problem. So definitely don't fall into that trap. Go and verify first.
That's great, thanks.
I can't quite see all the hands, but I can see people have got them up, so if you want to come in, please do. I think there's an order, isn't there? Is it Enolia?
Eniola.
Thank you.
Hi. So thank you for the presentation. That was really amazing. I have quite a number of questions.
Sure.
I'm hoping I'm able to get through. But so the question you have on screen, how to create space and reflect when challenges arises. I think for me, my approach is really taking a step back, because oftentimes I've realized that the noise is not, most of the time is not as loud as it is in my head. So just taking a step back to calm down and actually be able to evaluate what the exact situation is could be very helpful. It's not as bad as we think at times, and some very few times it could be really, really bad. But then emotions and impulse is not really the most practical way to approach things. So taking a step back, getting a breather, maybe for a walk or a drink, is always really helpful. So to my questions, first of all, I don't know, this may be a big ask, but I'll appreciate if it's not possible. Can your materials be shared? The one you've used for your presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to share those for Kev so that they can be put on the Read site. That's fine.
Thank you. Right. So yeah, my second question is, you did mention that when you started, you were very new to or pretty new to product.
Yes.
What were the challenges you faced, and what were the most useful transferable skills you found when you started in that space?
Sure. So my biggest challenges were self-imposed, I think, on reflection. I sort of said at the start that I felt that because it was a tech role, I needed to be a techie, and I wasn't. Um, so yeah, a lot of my challenges were self-imposed. Um, the quickest thing that I learned that added the most value was to identify who knows the thing you need to know. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. And it can be difficult to navigate that when you're wanting to prove your value, your capability, and give people confidence. But you need to ask questions, and don't fear people's titles either. You know, one of the first projects I work on was with a director, and it's very easy to be like, oh gosh, you know, director sort of thing, and kind of be paralyzed by their title, and therefore not really engage, be afraid to say no, be afraid to kind of challenge them on why they think something needs to go a particular way. So I would encourage you to push yourself out of your comfort zone, because when you're uncomfortable, you are growing. Um, and then, sorry, I've forgotten the second part of your question.
The transferable skills you
That's it,
found most
transferable
useful.
skills.
Yeah.
Sure. So transferable skills would be any sort of soft skill that you have, really, in terms of communication, I would say, is a really, really big one. Your problem solving abilities, you know, and I think you mentioned that already around kind of taking stock and evaluating what's actually going on. And any sort of sector knowledge you have will be so beneficial for anything product wise, or kind of like contributing towards your business goals. Um, yeah,
Okay.
communication is
Thank you
probably
very
like the
much.
largest one. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I do have another question, but I'll let every other person go first so I don't take the whole time. If there's chance, I would ask again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So is it Elodie?
It's Ailey.
Illy, sorry, Illy.
Yes, no, don't worry. It's Gaelic, so it's yeah, not easy if you've not seen it before. Yeah, I was just gonna answer the question because I have faced this exact challenge in the last three days, which has not been so fun. But essentially, yeah, our kind of head of kind of raised a problem to me on Friday, and essentially, yeah, was like, you need to have an answer for me by call of play Monday. So that was kind of, yeah, the last 3 days was kind of figuring out how to kind of answer that challenge. And the way that I did it was first lean on other people, because I needed time from developers, and I don't have that. I'm kind of new in working with this particular area, so I didn't have that relationship. So leaning on our Scrum Master and making sure that they were kind of aware that I was going to be taking developer time away from sprint, that kind of idea. And then really making sure that I understood the facts, because the question was all about developer resource. And I think within our team, there maybe is, rightly or wrongly, sometimes we make assumptions about how long things are going to take because we're so familiar with the system and so used to what has happened previously, but we forget that these developers are quite new. So what they can do is their timeframes might be different to a developer that's been working on the system for 10 years. And I probably made assumptions based on what a more senior developer told me. So basically all of Monday was spent getting the facts from the people that would actually be doing the work. And that was a lesson learned for me, basically. This guy, his name's Matt. He's amazing, but not to always trust what he's saying, because if he's not doing the work, then actually it could lead to issues later down the line when things take longer. So that was, yeah, both lessons learned for me, but also, yeah, really kind of leaning on the team. And we've got, you know, kind of like a session scheduled with everybody later today just to kind of reflect a little bit more and really decide next steps. So I think I think we've got what we need. But yeah, certainly been a bit of a challenge, which has been interesting. I'm excited for it to be over today. Celebrate tonight.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that, and I'm excited for you to get to the end of that challenge as well. Yes. But yeah, I think the theme there is definitely kind of asking the questions, talking to people, and bringing people along on the journey, isn't it? And navigating that, and it can be really difficult. I know with the pilot that I run, the thing I was most nervous about was kind of the speaking to some of our networking engineers, because networking is not my area at all. Didn't have a lot of experience, but navigating and finding ways to communicate with them, because they weren't interested in my user stories or value and things like that. So being adaptive and kind of asking people what they need in the moment in order to deliver against whatever challenges you've currently got is absolutely key. Pi, have you got a question?
Yes, Caroline. So I'm very interested in knowing because I heard your background before starting working as a product specialist, working with the product developers and the product life cycle, all those things. So more focus on the gathering the business goals and driving the team that works in product. And your background came from a different area. I found that really interesting. My question is, how do you embrace this background when you are presenting in front of a team? And you mentioned that in some points, acquiring technical knowledge, not saying that you are going to be focused on the technical side when you are on your role, but you need to have leadership with the team. So how do you embrace that? You are coming up with day and saying, okay, so I'm going to be leading the product, and this is what I know, and being really successful. I'm interested in knowing how you did it, because you did it well. And it's a great example of using transferable skills, of being very because working in HR always is the best opportunity for working with people directly, demonstrating how well you can communicate, you can negotiate using your engagement skills, and yeah.
Sure. Okay, that's a great question. Okay, so I suppose the first thing is getting over your own potential imposter syndrome. So like I said at the start, where I sort of thought originally I needed to be technical, I just got to a point where I thought, I've been employed to do this job. Like, I've been asked to do it. Therefore, I am here for a reason, and my skills have value. So you've got to have a degree of confidence in yourself to do it successfully. The best way to get that is around your reflection. So if I kind of referred back to, like, when things are unclear, what is it that you don't know right now? And who can you ask about that? And what are the most important things? Obviously, we're all human. We don't expect everybody to know everything about everything. And if you can foster good team engagement and you have the right people in the room, a good leader surrounds themselves with like every skill set. So, I don't have every skill that I need. I know which skills I don't have. And so I will lean more on people who do have those skills to help and support and to add value, to balance me out. So I think it's all about bringing people on that journey, and inviting people to contribute and ask. I don't think if you are leading something from a product perspective, you should be telling people we are doing this, and this is how you will do it. You need to be sort of saying, okay, these are the objectives that we want to deliver against. This is why we're doing it. And the people in the room are actually more the ones that should be saying how, because they are developers, your product owners and your SMEs and things like that. They are the ones that have that in-depth knowledge and understanding and can really translate a business requirement or a product requirement into reality. And a product manager's skill is in utilizing that knowledge and that experience to deliver against what you really need. So I hope that helps a little bit with your question. I'd be happy to discuss separately if you've got any more questions, or obviously we've got the product management space in women technology, and that's kind of been kicked off properly. So there's more engagement and there's more talks coming as well in that space. So I'm sure that will add lots of value. Is there any last questions or contributions? Go on then.
Yes, thank you. So my last question is just where do you think the place of professional certification is in terms of when it comes to product management? How useful is it? What, if you would recommend any, which ones would you recommend?
Okay. So I use LinkedIn Learning and have done a couple of different courses on LinkedIn Learning. And I have read a few books and largely kind of accessed knowledge that my organization has provided. So I'm not somebody who has collected a lot of certifications. I think there absolutely is a value and a place for certifications. I think the individual needs to judge that based on your own understanding. So I did a course on LinkedIn that was about all the different aspects of product management, including technical product management, and things like that. And that gave me a good foundational understanding of how everything ties together. So I don't have any sort of specific recommendations, really. I think you said you're really keen on personal development, and I think the one kind of thing I would caution against is be selective over your resources, because there's only so much you can take in and only so much you can implement. And I was at a point kind of when I started out where I just absolutely overloaded myself with frameworks and understanding product management, but I wasn't putting it into practice. And that is actually the key thing. If you're reading a book or you're taking part in talks or whatever it is, like if something really stands out to you, like put that into practice, experiment it with it, and ask people other questions. So I know there are some resources in the product management space and read, and I'm sure that will expand out more as well as we do it. So maybe you could keep an eye out on there. I've got something on like books to recommend. I found quite a good link, so I could maybe share that after this. You've got a
Yes, that would
question,
be
Victoria?
helpful. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, thank you so much, Caroline, for the wonderful presentation. It's just refreshed my brain on certain things, and I was seeing like some of the struggles, some of bit of learning I've had in the previous experience I've got in the presentation. So it's really, really a memory refreshing session for me. Thank you. I just wanted to have like a bit of addition to what Eniola was asking about certifications. I also was in that situation, I would say, some times ago, thinking it's about certification and having all the certificates you can get. But trust me, nobody cares about the certificates. What can you bring to the table? How are you able to manage stakeholders? How are you able to solve a problem? That what matters, because at the end of the day, I've run to do certified Scrum Master certification. I've done CSPO. I've done name it. But trust me, when you go for an interview or when you get the job, it's not about those certificates. It doesn't count. What counts is what are you bringing to the table? Are you able to, attend to a problem? How do you view problem? How do you collaborate with, cross-functional teams? That's what really matters, like what she has said. So if for me, I would just focus on leading on people. If you can make some kind of network, like I do that a lot. I can just go into Caroline's inbox on LinkedIn and say, hi Caroline, I just saw your profile and something that attracted me about it. Do you have a few minutes for us to just have an informal chat? And so I leverage on people's knowledge and their experience, and that's how I was able to build myself outside certification, because at certificates they were not doing anything for me. They were just there on the CV, like, I have this, but it doesn't really bring you to the desk. So what brings you to the desk is how you're able to, what are you bringing? How are you able to attend to a problem? How do you see and and attend to problems? That's what really matters at the end of the day. So yeah, that's just a bit about what I wanted to add. And I also want to say something about the question that you asked, like how do product managers really sit as and they reflect and take a pause. It's something I always love to do personally, because like I said while I was introducing myself, I also have a product I'm currently building, and I've had to work with so many people. I just secured a partnership today, which is something I was really very proud of before joining this meeting. So I secured a partnership with a very big brand, and uh, so I've had a problem in last week, that should be last week or 2 weeks ago, where I've had to, like, either take an instant decision or take a pause and think about how I want to attend to the situation. So really, for me, it's about understanding what the problem is. And most of the times, if you get a feedback from a customer, it can be very loud that you get confused as an experienced product manager. But at the end of the day, one thing for me is to take that pause, understand, reflect. Okay, let me even think of how I've attended to this kind of problem in the past. What was the outcome? Can I use the same, the same approach into the same problem? So that's for me. I always ensure that I understand what is the context of a problem. It can be loud, but might not be making any impact. It might not be impacting the customer that is, bringing in the noise. It might not be impacting my, company objective. So what exactly is the problem and who is it impacting? And then from there, I'm able to define, have I experienced this in the past? If yes, how did I approach it? What was the outcome? And how can I bring it into this current situation? So that's how I've always, reflect, take a pause, and solve or navigate through a challenge. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable. And I think the fact that you're doing it for yourself as well, Victoria, with your own products, kind of speaks volumes as well to the importance of really evaluating what works, what doesn't work, and being adaptive. So I'm conscious of time, but thank you everyone so much for attending, for your participation, questions, etc. And obviously to Kevin and the community as well for organising it and bringing us together, and giving us spaces to keep talking about these things.